The coffee maker burbled its last drops into the pot, the sound echoing through the empty kitchen. I stood at the window, watching the snow melt on the driveway, steam rising from my mug. 40 years I'd lived in this house. 40 years of memories soaked into these walls. And then I heard the rumble of a diesel engine, far too early for deliveries. What the hell? I walked to the front window and felt my stomach drop. A moving truck, a massive U-Haul, backing into my driveway at 7:30 on a Tuesday morning. Behind it, Sarah's Honda CR-V, and behind that, Marcus's pickup. I hadn't seen them in 3 months, not since Thanksgiving when they'd left early because Marcus wasn't feeling well. The doorbell rang before I could process what I was seeing. "Dad! Surprise!" Sarah pushed past me, arms loaded with boxes. Behind her, Marcus carried a flat-screen TV still in its wrapper. Their kids, Emma, 10, and Josh, 8, barreled through with backpacks and gaming consoles. "Sarah, what's going on?" I stepped aside as Marcus made 3 more trips to the truck. "Oh, Dad, I meant to call." She set boxes down in my living room, right on top of the Afghan Linda had crocheted before she passed. Marcus's company did another round of layoffs. Can you believe it? After 12 years. So we had to leave our apartment, couldn't afford the rent without his salary. "You're moving in?" The words came out flatter than I intended. "Just temporarily, while Marcus finds something new. A month, maybe 2. She was already directing the kids upstairs. "Emma, Josh, take your stuff to the guest rooms, and be careful on the stairs." I watched as piece after piece of their life came through my door. A leather sectional that wouldn't fit in my living room. A dining table when I already had one. Kitchen appliances, bedroom sets, boxes labeled Marcus Office and Sarah Craft Supplies. "Sarah, how much stuff did you bring?" "Well, we had to break our lease, so we brought everything." She was breathless, red-faced. "The storage units around here are so expensive, Dad, and you have all this space. All this space." The same words Linda used to say, but with love in her voice. "We're so lucky, Robert. Room for the grandkids to visit, room for your workshop, room to breathe." Now it sounded like an accusation. By noon, my house looked like a warehouse. Their furniture crowded every room. The kids had taken over both guest bedrooms, their toys already scattered across the hallway. I heard the thump of something heavy upstairs. "Dad?" Sarah called from the second floor. "Can you come up here?" I climbed the stairs, my knees protesting like they always did these days. Sarah stood in the doorway of my bedroom, the master bedroom I'd shared with Linda for 38 years. "Marcus and I were thinking," she said, not meeting my eyes. "This room is huge. And you're just one person. Maybe it makes more sense if we take this room and you move into the smaller guest room? The one with the twin bed?" I stared at her. "This is my bedroom, Sarah." "I know, Dad, but be practical. Marcus needs space for his home office setup while he job hunches, and I need room for my yoga mat. Plus, the kids are right across the hall, we need to be close to them. The guest room is still nice. It has that view of the Johnsons' yard. This was your mother's room. Mom's gone, Dad." Her voice softened, but the words landed like stones. "And I think she'd want you to help family when they need it. Don't use Mom as an excuse," I wanted to say. But Emma ran past screaming about Josh taking her charger, and Sarah rushed off to referee, and I stood alone in the doorway of my own bedroom, feeling like a stranger in my own house. That night, I slept in the guest room. The twin bed Linda had bought for when her sister visited. I lay there staring at the ceiling, listening to Marcus's heavy footsteps in my bedroom, hearing the scrape of furniture being rearranged. In the morning, I found they'd moved Linda's antique dresser, the one her grandmother had given her, into the hallway. "It doesn't match our aesthetic," Sarah explained, typing on her laptop at my kitchen table. She'd rearranged everything. My coffee mugs were in a different cabinet. My newspaper was buried under Marcus's protein powder containers. I tried to settle into a routine. I'd wake early, make coffee before anyone else was up, take my walk around the neighborhood. But every day I came home to more changes. Marcus had moved my tools out of the garage to make room for his mountain bike. Sarah had thrown out my old Lazy Boy Dad. It was falling apart and replaced it with their sectional. The kids used my workshop as a playroom. "Dad, can you keep it down?" Sarah asked one evening when I was watching the Broncos game. "The kids are trying to sleep." It was 7 p.m. In my own living room. A week became two. Two became three. Marcus got a couple of interviews, but nothing solid. Sarah started talking about the schools in our district, how good they were. Maybe they should enroll the kids just in case this takes longer than expected. I called my lawyer, Tom Patterson. We'd been friends since high school, worked together on the volunteer fire department for years. "Robert, they're family," Tom said over lunch at our usual diner. "You can't just evict them, especially not with kids. They've established tenancy. You'd need to give 30 days notice. And even then, with the housing market the way it is, with Marcus unemployed, a judge would likely give them more time. Could take months. So I'm stuck, unless they leave voluntarily." He stirred his coffee. "Or unless you sell the house." I drove home thinking about his words. Sell the house. The house where I'd carried Linda over the threshold, where we'd raised Sarah, where I'd installed the swing set, taught her to ride a bike, walked her down the aisle the day she married Marcus, where Linda had spent her last good Christmas before the cancer took her. But when I walked in, Marcus was in my recliner, the new one I'd bought to replace the old Lazy Boy, with his feet up, eating my leftover pot roast. "Hey, Bob, you mind picking up more groceries tomorrow? We're running low on the kids' snacks." "Bob. My name is Robert. Even Linda called me Robert." That night, I couldn't sleep. I heard voices from the master bedroom, Sarah and Marcus, talking in heated whispers. I crept closer to the hallway. "Just needs to be realistic," Marcus was saying. "This house is way too big for one old man. He can barely climb the stairs." "He climbs them fine," Sarah said, but she sounded uncertain. "He's 68. How much longer before he needs full-time care? And then what, this place sits empty. So what are you saying?" "I'm saying maybe we help him make the smart choice. Get him into one of those senior communities, active living or whatever they call it. We could handle the sale, use some of the money to help him with the down payment on a nice apartment, and the rest. I mean, you're his only child, Sarah. This is your inheritance anyway." My inheritance. The house I'd paid for with 30 years of firefighter wages, overtime shifts, danger pay. The house Linda and I had built a life in. "I don't know, Marcus. That feels wrong. It's practical. And honestly, the way he forgets things lately, leaves the stove on, loses his keys, maybe we should talk to a lawyer about getting power of attorney. For his own safety." I backed away from the door, my hands shaking. I didn't forget things. I'd left the stove on once, warming soup. Lost my keys once, found them in my jacket pocket. Normal stuff. But they were building a case. The next morning, my neighbor Bill knocked on my door. He was 72, retired postal worker, lived 3 doors down with his wife Janet. "Robert, you got a minute?" He glanced over his shoulder. "Maybe take a walk?" We walked to the corner and back. Bill told me what he'd overheard at the coffee shop downtown. Sarah and Marcus, meeting with an estate lawyer, asking about conservatorship proceedings, mental competency evaluations, what it takes to declare someone unable to manage their own affairs. "They're planning this," Bill said. "Janet and we've seen it before with her cousin. Once they start that process, it's hard to stop. They get a doctor to say you're declining, get a judge to agree, and suddenly you don't own your own life anymore." I stood in my driveway, looking at my house. Red brick, white trim, the maple tree I'd planted when Sarah was born. Linda's rose bushes, dormant for winter but ready to bloom in spring. My home, not anymore. I called Tom that afternoon. "I want to sell." "Robert, you sure?" "I'm sure. But I want to do it my way. Find me a buyer, someone who can close fast. And don't tell Sarah and Marcus until it's done." Tom was quiet. "That's your right. But this will hurt your relationship with your daughter." "She heard it first." I started packing slowly, carefully. Things Sarah and Marcus wouldn't notice. Linda's jewelry box, our wedding photo, the quilt her mother had made. I boxed them up and stored them in Bill's garage. Every day, a little more. Tom called 2 weeks later. I found someone, a couple relocating from California, cash buyers. They love the house. Can close in 20 days. Do it. Sarah noticed something was different when the inspector showed up. Dad, why is there a man measuring our windows? Not our windows, Sarah. My windows. What? I told her then. Told her about the sale, about the inspection, about the closing date 3 weeks away. Watched her face go from confused to shocked to pale. You can't do that. We live here. No, I live here. You moved in without asking. Marcus came thundering down the stairs. This is insane. You can't just sell the house out from under us. We have rights. Tenant rights, maybe. But I own this house. Checked with my lawyer. You have 30 days from the closing date to find somewhere else. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. Dad, how could you? We're family. Family doesn't steal your bedroom. Family doesn't plot to have you declared incompetent. Family doesn't treat your house like a storage unit. What are you talking about? Coffee shop on Grant Street, 2 weeks ago. You and Marcus meeting with Patricia Hillman, the estate attorney. Should I go on? Sarah's face went white. Marcus's jaw tightened. We were just exploring options, Sarah said weakly. For your future. My future is mine to decide. And I've decided. The closing was on a Tuesday. Tom met me at the title company. Sarah and Marcus had barely spoken to me in 3 weeks, except to ask for more time. I'd said no. The buyers were lovely people. Frank and Diana Chen, early 40s, 2 kids. They reminded me of Linda and me, decades ago. We'll take good care of it, Diana said, shaking my hand. Your neighbor Bill told us about the rose bushes. I promise we'll maintain them. That afternoon, I drove to my new place. Not a senior community, I wasn't ready for that. A nice 2-bedroom condo in a building with people my age, but independent, active. There was a woodworking shop in the building, a garden on the roof. My furniture from the guest room fit perfectly. Linda's dresser had a place of honor in my bedroom. Bill and Janet helped me unpack. Tom brought pizza. We sat in my new living room, and for the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe. What are Sarah and Marcus going to do? Janet asked gently. Sarah called her mom's sister in Phoenix. They're moving there. Marcus got a job offer. How do you feel about that? I thought about it. About my daughter who'd stopped seeing me as her father and started seeing me as an obstacle. About the grandkids I might not see grow up. About the daughter-in-law who'd convinced himself he had claim to what wasn't his. I feel sad, I said honestly. But I also feel free. Tom raised his beer. To new beginnings. To new beginnings, we echoed. That night, alone in my new bedroom, I looked at the photo of Linda on my nightstand. 40 years we'd had together. She taught me a lot of things: how to love, how to be patient, how to be strong when I needed to be. I hope I did the right thing, I whispered to her picture. The lamplight seemed to warm, and I could almost hear her voice. You did, Robert. You protected what we built, and now you get to build something new. I slept better that night than I had in months. The woodworking shop in my building became my refuge. I started making small furniture pieces, birdhouses, things I could donate to the local school. Met other retired guys who gathered there most afternoons. We talked about sports, politics, grandkids, normal stuff. A couple of months later, I got a letter from Sarah. An actual letter, not a text or email. She apologized. Not for everything she still thought I'd overreacted, but she acknowledged she'd pushed too hard, asked too much. Marcus had written a separate note. Shorter, stiffer, but it was something. They'd settled in Phoenix. Marcus was working again. The kids were in good schools. They invited me to visit for Thanksgiving. I haven't decided yet if I'll go. What I have decided is this. I'm 68 years old. I worked hard my whole life. I loved my wife, raised my daughter, served my community. I don't owe anyone my dignity, not even family. Especially not family who stopped treating me like a person and started treating me like an inconvenience. Bill and I have coffee most mornings now. There's a woman in my building, Catherine, who invited me to her book club. I said yes. Linda would have liked that. My condo has a small balcony. I bought planters and started some of Linda's roses from cuttings I'd saved. They're taking root. In spring, they'll bloom. Sometimes letting go of what was is the only way to make room for what comes next. I learned that the hard way, but I learned it. And that's worth something. That's worth everything.